right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Impact Theory University's first ever office hours. I hope that you guys really enjoyed the first version that we did, which was, the change up that we did recently, which was to break the class up into two different pieces. For me, as the instructor, it was a lot more fun to be able to split them up. It let me put a lot more time and attention on that one piece of curriculum itself. I also changed the way that I was doing the classes. So hopefully that feedback, the initial feedback that we got, which was very positive, has actually held. But let us know, drop in the comments whether you like the new format, because we can always go back to the 2-hour behemoth where we just rock it for 2 hours straight. But on our side, well, I guess I'll speak for myself. I don't know how the team feels, but speaking for myself, I thought that breaking it up was much more effective. So I'm very excited to be doing the office hours today, where I'm going to be taking your questions. We have 5 people joining us live via Zoom here. Everybody at home, you're going to be able to see them. These 5 were chosen because they were super active in the feed. They were asking a lot of questions. They were highly engaged. So if you want to be in next month's office hours and get a chance to ask your question live, be sure that you're in the feed now in the next coaching session as well, engaging, asking questions, communicating with other people in the group. And Namratha holds your fate in her hands, and she will be choosing the 5 for the next one. All right. Will, is there anything else you want me to cover before we dive right in? All right, here we go. Who's up? Why don't you introduce yourself really fast so people know who they are speaking with? Hold on one second. I can't hear you, so I'm going to guess. Technology, ladies and gentlemen. Bear with us one second. All right, take 2.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I can hear me quite. Okay. My name is Shervan. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. I've been following you, Tom, for probably 3 years. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for changing my life. Second, thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for Impact Theory. It's the university. It's an awesome place to be. Third, to my question, when it comes to a growth mindset, how are we able to identify certain blind spots that we have? I know there's areas that we believe that we can grow, but there's certain areas that we don't even know that we can grow. So how do we identify those places, those blind spots?
So the easiest way, and this is something that I struggle with people on a daily basis, is really, and go back and rewatch the class on how to overcome a false growth mindset, because it isn't that you have blind spots, it's that you have areas where you still have a fixed mindset. And when you really click over into having a growth mindset, what happens is you're always and forever existing in a place of having a solution-oriented mindset. The very second you do one of 2 things, you're finding the edge case of where you're still in a fixed mindset or you have a false growth mindset. And number 1 is if you're allowing yourself to believe that something is impossible. So if you're saying, well, we can't do that, that doesn't make any sense, it's overwhelming, you go to a place where it's the negativity comes to you and you buy into it, if that makes sense. The second thing is that what people do is they're trying to blame somebody else. They're trying to make it somebody else's responsibility. It wasn't me, it was them, it was the situation, it was luck, it was fate, it was whatever. And the second you do either of those 2 things, then you've got an inherent problem, which is you're dealing in the world of a fixed mindset. Once people are clicked over truly into a growth mindset, what ends up happening is they ask themselves immediately a very powerful question, which is, what is the path to yes? When I see people start there, like, you may back up and say, all right, this thing is too big, it's too crazy, I'm not willing to do it. But you start with, even if I'm too dumb to figure this out right now, I know that I could go learn the things that I need to learn, or I could go find somebody that can help me. Because look, we all have limitations. I get that. But one, those limitations are usually transient. They're a limitation based on your skill set right now today. And Where I get frustrated is when I meet people that they mistake a temporary problem with a permanent state of being. And by that, I mean they hit a roadblock, they hit a challenge, and they think there's something wrong with me, there's something wrong with the situation, this is an unsolvable problem, or more terrifyingly, they won't allow themselves. They'll start with, well, I have a growth mindset. And this is the false growth mindset at work. I have a growth mindset, so let me backtrack. Let me see what's going on. Let me find that path to yes. And all of that is making them feel like they're doing all the right things. And as they go recursively backwards, which is exactly what you should do, by the way. Like if you're trying to figure out where it is that the path to yes begins, you want to go back and just start asking question until you get to the root cause of the problem. Now, what happens in a false growth mindset is they either never look at the hard truth, which is, very simply, even without knowing any specifics, you're not good enough yet. They don't want to look at that. Now, the psychological immune system kicks in, and what they start doing is they start making it somebody else's problem. Like, when I really stop and think about where everybody gets fucked up, it is there. It is that moment. It is not doing the hard fucking work of getting your ego out of the way so that you're always willing to say, always, I want to eat this fucking microphone, that you're always willing to say, somehow, somewhere in this process, this is my fault. And not in a like, oh, I should feel badly about it way. In fact, I should migrate away from saying fault. It just fucks too many people up. You're finding the thing that is the current problem with your strategy, your mindset, your knowledge base, or your skill set. You're finding something in there. And you're saying, okay, this is the problem. This is the thing that's missing for me. And if I could solve that problem, then I would be able to move forward. Tell me if that makes sense. I'm going to start looping without more feedback, and I won't waste everybody's time. Saban, we're doing a battle on our end with technology. Saban, hang with us 1 second.
Do you want to do this right now?
If we need to. Saban, go for it.
Hey, can you still hear me? Yeah. Thank you for your answer. And I understand taking ownership of the things and the obstacles that I know that I need to overcome. My question is, what about those obstacles that are at a subconscious level that I'm not even aware of, that hold me back, that I don't even know about? Those are the things that I all constantly worry. What are the fixed mindset things that lurk in the subconscious where I have no idea about them? And those are the things that hold me back unknowingly.
All right, let me tackle this from another angle, which is you need to think of this as process. And here's the hard thing. And I'm going to give you the exact same answer I just gave you, and I'm going to give it to you from another angle. And the reason is, and this is why this shit is so important, that the thing that I just laid out, that it didn't land with you, but it is the only thing. So the way to get to this from a process basis, because you're worried about some deep-seated, unknown, fixed mindset that's lurking in the shadows like a boogeyman under the bed, and that isn't, like the mere fact that you're asking that question tells me you already understand the nature of your mind. So yes, you're going to have resistance. Yes, you're going to have negativity. Yes, you're going to have that negative voice. Yes, it's going to tell you that you're not going to be able to do this. Yes, it's going to all seem real. Okay, so you already know that, which is why you're asking this question. So now, to get to the layer deeper, the only thing that you really have at your disposal is process. So number one, process point number one, repetition. You need to be repeating things like human potential is limitless. And I'll even remove the word nearly right now so that you don't trip yourself up. Human potential is limitless, but learning takes time. So when you encounter something where it's like, okay, I know that I have the potential. And a big part of the reason I want people to understand that human potential is limitless is so that they stop blaming their current circumstances for where they're at. So, because what's going to happen is people will say, I'm not where I want to be. Therefore, the system is holding me back. Therefore, my own level of intelligence is holding me back. Okay. The system may actually be working against you, and your intelligence may actually be working against you. But where you have to get to from a process place is that the only thing that you're thinking about is the fact that you're able to learn, grow, and get better. And I think we keep seeing you guys. I'm not sure if it's because you make noise or something, but at least on the Zoom call, you pop up for me. So, all right, process. Step number 1, repeat to yourself, human potential is limitless. Process step number 2, you're always going to be asking yourself, what could I do differently to get a result? Process step number 3, if you ever find yourself blaming someone else or a different situation, then that needs to be like the red flag. So rather than worry about like where the growth mindset is lurking, simply audit your behaviors using process. Are you with me so far? Because if you're not, hit me with the question now.
I'm with you, for sure.
So did that literally just change your life, or there's still a part of this we're not hitting?
Practice. Mindfulness.
Yeah, that is true. And you guys are going to help me have a breakthrough, because this is where I want to shake people, and never shake the baby, as they say. But this is an area where I want to know if this isn't landing, if it feels like, okay, I don't know where else to go, Tom, but I don't feel that in my gut. I want to know, because I think sometimes the answer is so terrifyingly, stupidly simple that people think that there is something more complicated. And you get into this loop of waiting for some big epiphany. This shit is fucking boring. It's really dull shit of just repeating in your head the things you believe. So Mindset 101, that class, if you guys haven't taken it, go take that class. Mindset 101, one of the biggest things I wanted people to get is what I call the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is that you can put energy and effort into something, and that you will get better by putting that energy and effort into it. Okay, why is that important? Because that's going to remove one of the obstacles that stops people, which is that they don't put in the energy and the effort. Because what you really want to be doing is burrowing into your subconscious. And as far as I can tell, there's only 2 ways to burrow something into your subconscious. 1, a very heightened emotional moment, getting in a huge fight, something dramatic happening, something bad happening, something great happening, but something that's inordinately high in emotion, which triggers the amygdala, which I think impacts the hippocampus, which causes you to write your memories down better. And they become a deeper, there's like 3 layers of learning in the brain, which we're actually going to be covering, I think, in the next class. And in one of the deeper layers of learning, you're getting to that point where it's in the automatic system. So the automatic system is often referred to as the default network. The default network are the things that happen automatically. Now, that was one way. The second way to get something down, pushed into the default network, is to repeat it over and over and over and over. It is very hard to manufacture that really heightened emotional moment to make something right incredibly well. So you have to leverage the one thing that you have, which is just this sort of blind, dumb repetition. But you have to, and again, going back to Mindset 101, the literal class, so if you haven't taken it, take it or watch it again, going into the what I'll call rootkit belief systems. You have to get to the rootkit belief system. So a rootkit is the thing that allows a computer to be manipulated without becoming aware of the fact that, without the hacker basically being detected. So it's a way to hack your brain, to get into a subconscious level, to make adjustments without the brain throwing up red flags. So you're going to instill those beliefs, the rootkit beliefs, and they are the beliefs that we cover in Mindset 101. So unfortunately, I did not call them rootkit beliefs in that class. That would have been very helpful. But I said, these are the beliefs that matter. These are the beliefs that you have to start with. And I laid them out one by one by one. So you want to start with those rootkit beliefs because that's how you're going to get into that deeper layer of the mind. And they're really basic shit like human potential is limitless. Repetition is a way to drive things into your mind. So repeat things over and over. It's really, really, really basic stuff. The only belief that matters is a rootkit belief, right? That putting in energy and effort is going to change you. That beliefs themselves are malleable is a rootkit belief. And if you have these things and these rootkit beliefs are the things you're repeating to yourself, then you're going to find that over time this stuff really begins to seep in. But here's the trick. If you just use them at a process level, you don't have to have a fully integrated growth mindset to act as if like 100% completely consistent with a growth mindset. The only thing that you may struggle with if it's not integrated yet is you may have long periods of negativity before you remember to lean on your rootkit beliefs, to repeat them, to say them aloud, to use the Pachenko machine analogy that I used to use all the time. The way that I feel in my life is that something negative will happen to me and I run it through these, a Pachenko machine. If you've ever seen it, the ball bounces around and it hits all these metal rods and bounce. And you want to have these rootkit beliefs. And then on top of that, you're going to have an operating system layer of beliefs, which is what we talked about in the last class, which is actually what these office hours are about. And the first one of those operating system level beliefs is that human potential is nearly limitless. So as you run this negative thing through that Pachenko machine and it's bumping into all these different beliefs, the rootkit level, the operating system level, which you can just write down and have on a piece of paper. As you filter this negative event, I can't do that. I'm going to lose my business. I'm not smart enough. Whatever the thing is that's happening, as it bounces around through that, then you're going to get an output on the end that is a directive, an action-oriented directive from your conscious mind to act in accordance with the principles of a growth mindset, which means that you're going to start with yes, that you're going to, meaning when I say start with yes, I mean that you're going to say this is possible. So now I simply need to find the path forward. Does that all make sense? I can only see one person. All right. I hope that landed. Okay. Next question. I got booted from the meeting. So I don't know. Rejoining. One second, Albert. I cannot hear you. If it helps everybody, the team is scrambling joyfully to figure this all out, and we're working hard to make this experience stop sucking. So bear with us, and we will. I have no idea who we still have. Hi, if you're at home and you're watching, where would we be able to see if the live feed is still with us? Are people on Facebook still with us? Because we've obviously lost Zoom.
Everyone on YouTube is perfectly fine.
Nice.
The Zoom audience.
Okay. What about, we're not on Facebook at all.
We're not on Facebook.
Got it. Okay. Well, then why don't we grab a question from YouTube?
Josh, I'm gonna close it. So we have a question from Lord Mark. The question is, how do you remain motivated and positive about your progress if you don't have yet a clear vision / goals about what do you want?
You don't. Next question. No, I'm kidding. So I'm dead serious about the answer. The answer is you don't. So desire, motivation. This may be the thing that challenges me the most is that I can't want it for people, and desire is the most important part of the equation. Things are going to get so hard. If you're trying to do something extraordinary, things are going to get exceedingly difficult. And the only thing that's going to get you through is what we talked about in the last class, which is animus, right? Animus has those two wonderful definitions. Definition number one is that there's something in your gut, a sense of anger or desire to right a wrong. And then the other definition, and I think they go hand in hand, is that it gives you the motivation to push forward. Okay, so they're that dual nature of there's something wrong and I want to make it right. And it is that very thing that gives me the energy to push forward. Now, how do we get to that place? You've got to cultivate desire. Now, I use the word cultivate on purpose because it isn't going to happen by accident. Now, some people find this thing, this animating force when they're young, and so people mistake it as you're born with it. But the reality is that you're not. Now, some people may find that desire comes much easier than other people. And so you may have a harder time of building that desire in your life. Now, if you have a harder time building the desire in your life, you need to ask a very fundamental question. Why am I trying to build desire in my life? Do you feel like you have to? Do you feel like your life would somehow be better if you had desire? Because I'm not necessarily sure that that's the case. So that fundamental question, I think, has to be answered. There's basically these two divergent paths for you to take. Path number one is the monastic path, where we're trying to eliminate desire and we're trying to live in a state of peaceful bliss at all times. I have not pursued that path. I cannot tell you with any degree of certainty that maybe that's even better. And at this time, I usually quote my man Ray Dalio, who says, I don't know that a stress-free life wouldn't be better. I only know that the way that I live my life is the only way I could have lived it for me. And that's exactly how I feel. So I'm on the other path, which is to try to do something extraordinary, to take that animus that I have built into my life, that desire to change things, to play at an extraordinarily high level, to do something amazing with my potential and actually turn it into usable skills. So those are the two paths before you. Now, if you feel like I used to feel, which is that you have all this ambition and that ambition is calling you forward, it makes you want to live this extraordinary life. It makes you want to turn your potential into usable skills. Then I get it. Until you know what you want to aim that at, it's like I imagine, like somebody who's an addict feels, where you have this longing, you're almost on a hunt for something, but you don't know what you're hunting for. To scratch that itch, you're going to need to start making some decisions that in the beginning are not going to seem like they're real. But through the repetition, through engaging with them, through pursuing skills in that area, you're going to be able to take something that starts as mildly interesting, becomes a fascination, and then ultimately becomes a true passion, which only happens through engagement, through skill acquisition. All of this, though, is predicated on that thing that you want to do. Okay, so if you're missing that goal, the end thing that you want to accomplish, you need to have understood that process that I just walked through of how you're going to build desire. Now you're just going to pick the thing that you're going to choose to desire. Now, I would say that a period of aimlessness, of playful aimlessness, is a very good idea. And this is something that Kevin Kelly talks about. You don't want to prematurely optimize. So I don't know how old you are. In fact, do we have any sense of the age of the person who asked that question? Oh man, it's so curious. I have somewhat different answers if you're really young than I have if you're older and have kids, for instance. But both of them are going to be about finding that thing that brings out that playfulness in you, to explore many things, to interact with them, not to think about them, but to actually go and interact with them. The engagement is the key part of this. So you want to go engage with the world. You want to see what gives you a little bit more energy than it takes away. You want to engage deeply in that thing. I've talked a lot about this, so I won't keep going down that path. If you're unclear on how to build a passion, I will happily address that. But that is something that I've certainly addressed many times. All right, how are we doing? Is he in the feed? Can he tell us if we've answered his question?
It will be a delay, but if you jump on to the next few questions.
All right, we'll come back to that one if it remains unclear. Who's up to bat?
I think that's me.
All right, fire away.
All right. Thanks, Tom, for doing this. So my question is, if we've never had to go from, being obese to super in shape, or poor to rich, or start a $1 billion business, for example, how do we gain credibility in those that we're trying to help? And just for a little bit of added context, I'm about to graduate medical school and will need to inspire some change in my patients, even though I've never been obese or diagnosed with chronic disease or metabolic disease or anything like that.
Okay, so there's two questions hiding in that, and I'll tease them out. So I'll answer your question very specifically, and then we'll go to the broader. So for you, this is going to be a game of psychology. So there's a lot going for you already. You've got the white coat effect, the fact that you've been to medical school, that you've graduated, all of that stuff is going to give people a sense of confidence in what you're saying. The next thing is you need to really fucking practice on being certain when you speak. Because if certainty is intoxicating, and if you sound unsure, they're going to sound unsure. It is very okay to say you don't know. But if you're going to present something because you actually believe it, then fucking present it like you believe it. Now, this is not me saying bullshit and lie. When you don't know, fucking own it. Say you don't know. You'll actually earn a lot of credibility because people will know, hey, when he doesn't know, he just owns it. And I would say something along the lines of, I don't know, but I can figure that out. I'll get back to you. Then they know you're going to be proactive, then actually go figure that out. But if you're walking that line of when you don't know, you fucking own it in an instant, you don't pretend, you don't shuck and jive, people can smell that shit a mile away. And when you fucking know, and this is where people fall off, you've got to act like you know. You've got to come at it with certainty. There is a, what I'll call a presentation layer. All of us have a presentation layer. You're experiencing mine right fucking now. So it's like you have to put yourself in a place where you're saying, how am I coming across? In what way do I want to deliver this message? How am I going to modulate my voice? It is crazy to me that people don't practice their communication skills. They don't practice, like, how long do you look someone in the eye? When do you look away? Do you stand with your shoulders back? Like, there is some seriously basic shit that people don't stop and think about in terms of how it comes across to somebody. So you want to make sure that you're focused on that presentation layer. And then look, your youth is going to work against you. Know that, accept it, and then that brings us to the broader part. And this is where I want everyone to focus on. I get asked this question a lot, and it's usually from the perspective of either somebody wants to help their family, so it's not, that they're a doctor. They want to help their family, or they want to be an influencer. And the answer is always the same. If you can shut that side off, if you can not think about helping other people for a minute, if you can not think about trying to look cool on camera and just say, I want to go get great at this thing. And that thing, the reason you want to get great at it is because you really fucking care. Now, this applies to you as a doctor as well. Imagine for a second that you didn't think at all about the patients that you're treating right now. Follow with me. Don't panic yet. You're not thinking about the patients that you're dealing with right now. In every interaction, you're saying one thing. This patient is practice for me to become the greatest physician that ever lived. That just gave me the chills. Now, the reason that gave me the chills is because I find that kind of escalation protocol so interesting and so motivating. The idea of becoming extraordinary to me is a reward in and of itself. And the pursuit of greatness is probably the greatest motivating factor in my life. So when I'm doing things, when things are getting hard, one of the ways that I stop from being overwhelmed is I always tell myself, there's no such thing as performance, there's only practice. And what I mean by that is I'm putting myself in the fake situation of saying, oh, this moment right here is just practice. I'm going to learn something on my way to becoming the greatest of all time. If I were to walk in as a doctor to meet with a patient and say, like, I'm the greatest of all time right now, the level of insecurity that I would have would be astronomical because I know that it's not true. So then it becomes harder to be confident, it becomes harder to be certain, it becomes harder to be honest about what you do and don't know. Whereas if everyone can fall in love with the process of becoming great, to let the very process of becoming great be that animus that drives them forward, be the thing that they get excited about. Then all of a sudden you start, in fact, why is that important? That's important because you'll look at the world on long timelines. When people start looking at short timelines, they start making short-term decisions. And this is one of those areas where I really want people to hear what I'm saying because fuck patience. I'm not talking about that. But what I am saying is you have to play a long game. You've got to always be thinking to value yourself based on your performance over, let's say, 10-year increments. So when you look at yourself in a year, you may not be impressed. You may have had a lot more failures in that year than wins. But if you start looking at yourself on a 10-year horizon and you look back, like think about what you knew about human biology 10 years ago. Like really stop for a minute and think about what you knew. And think, if I were to roll up on my first day of being a doctor and seeing patients with that level of knowledge, well, compared to where you're going to be in 10 years from now, if you play it right, that's where you are today, right? So it's really fucking exciting to think, whoa, like what I did over the last 10 years. And so you get kind of hype on yourself and you think, whoa, man, I've come so far. This is crazy. I really applied myself. I put a lot of work in. There were ups, there were downs. There were times I wanted to quit. No question. But I didn't. And because of that, I know a lot of shit, and this stuff has real utility. And now I'm going to be that beast mode in 10 years, but it won't happen by accident. And when I meet motherfuckers that for 10 years, their obsession is getting fucking great. They're not thinking about anybody else. They're not thinking about pleasing somebody. They're not thinking about fixing their mom. They're not thinking about fucking looking cool on camera. They're just like, I'm going to get fucking awesome at this. Then they actually get good. And when they walk in a room, they're fucking rad and they carry themselves in some kind of way. And they're actually able to influence other people. They gain their credibility almost by fucking accident because they're just putting in the work. Like, I want to ask you guys right now, who thinks I got up before 5 a.m.? And since I can't see anybody, raise your hand. I have one hand up. Will, do you actually think I got up before 5 a.m.? Who thinks I got up before 4 a.m.? Who thinks I got up before 3 a.m.? My ass, my wife knows, so she's cheating. I was up at 2:50 this morning. Now, you guys know I didn't set a fucking alarm. But when I got up, I woke up because my mind was on getting fucking good. And I got in front of a computer and I got to work. But I didn't get to work like feeling the pressure because I am under a lot of pressure right now. But I didn't think of it like that. I just thought, hey, you've got a couple extra hours now to get better. And when you approach it like that on a long enough timeline, you get fucking ridiculous. This is that gift that if you could give a gift by punching somebody, I would punch people on this one. But unfortunately, I don't think it works. But that's it, man. Head down, get fucking extraordinary. Hold yourself to a crazy ass standard. Be willing to become the greatest doctor that has ever lived. I'm not even talking right now. I'm talking ever lived. And have fun doing it because chances are you're going to fail. So don't judge yourself by whether or not you get there. Judge yourself by whether or not you pursue it sincerely every day.
Love it. Thank you.
You got it, man. The rest will take care of itself.
Tom, I'm going to jump in here because there's a relevant question from the field.
Ooh.
It's, so you talk about ignore everybody else. So this person says, how much does your surrounding matter? I live with people in a big scarcity mindset their whole life, and I want to move out. My grandparents. I want to move out, but I'm also starting a new business.
All right, well, who asked that question?
This person has his business name. His name is Progressive Lifestyle.
All right, Progressive Lifestyle. I want you to lean in on this one. Here's my thinking on environment. Environment matters so much. It will almost certainly determine the course of your life. Where somebody grows up, their fucking zip code, is one of the most predictive things in terms of lifelong success. I can't swear this is true, but I'm almost certain I remember this correctly, that your zip code is more predictive of future success than your IQ. Let that sink in. So your own ability to process data is less predictive of your success than the people around you. Now, having said all of that, if time were infinite, I would want to be dropped into the shittiest mindset area on the face of the fucking planet and have to work my way to the top again. There's a great Big Sean line where he says, I want to lose everything so I can show people I can build it twice. It's not the exact line, but you get the idea. Once your mindset is in a certain place, you can't be fucking stopped. I will change people around me, motherfucker. I'm telling you right now, you can drop me anywhere in a company at the fucking base level. You don't have to tell anybody who I am. These could be people, they have no fucking idea. They don't care. They don't know anything about my past experiences. This is why I tell people to get me in the fucking room. If you get me in a room with people, I'm going to make them fucking believe. Why? Because I have spent decades getting good at certain things. I have to memorize the fucking speech from Taken. I have to memorize that speech because I want to give that speech right now. I have a certain skill set, and that skill set allows me to do things, people, and I'm coming for you. And when you have that mentality, it doesn't fucking matter who you're around because you're going to shape the world. Oh, God, I'm going to read you a quote. And I have my computer. Look at this. It was like it was meant to be. So I just put this quote in our culture document. So anybody here at Impact Theory, you're going to want to read this. So many warnings. Fuck off. What is happening? All right. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. All right. This is going to be worth waiting for, people. Dead air, dead air. All right, here it is. This is a quote from George Bernard Shaw. I want everybody to remember this. This quote sums up how I've been successful. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. So, what was the business name again, Will? Progressive Lifestyle. Progressive Lifestyle. Here's the answer. If you can get out of your shitty circumstances, do it. If you can't, then you're going to change everyone and accept no substitutes. There it is. Next. Am I still visible in the Zoom? You're not. Okay, because this... Perfect.
Hiya, Tom. JP McCorley here
What's up, JP?
from Ireland, where George Bernard Shaw is from.
Timing is perfect.
Yeah. So many of the beliefs in the belief system seem to be grounded in encouraging action and innovation, initiative, courage, vulnerability, and ambition in ourselves and others. And I'm wondering, from an organization perspective, say it's your home life, where there's multiple people, say it's your business like Quest, what type of systems or habits supported and harnessed the belief system and ensured it aligned with whatever your values or company's objectives were?
Now, are you asking that because you have a company and you want to know like culture stuff, or?
Yeah, well, so if we take the company, I have a startup company called Obby. We've just been nominated in the top 2 startup companies in Northern Ireland.
Congratulations.
And I suppose my fear is two things: scale, okay, and the impact of scale on culture, and the value system when it's not at arm's length anymore. The second thing is the impact of taking on outside investment to facilitate that growth and having other people involved in the company will have. And I suppose the third thing is when you're encouraging things like innovation, for example, and you have like systematized processes, like if somebody on a production line or a developer that has boundaries to their role, like how do you encourage that system throughout the organization with such a myriad of, I suppose, needs and personalities?
All right. So you just asked the hardest question in business. So I'm going to give you the greatest answer you've ever received. Here it goes. Culture is insanely, insanely difficult. And as you scale, if you aren't beyond, I'll say this, as you scale, it will negatively impact the culture. I don't know if it's possible to, and admittedly, my own sort of neurological wiring is firing here saying something is impossible is a very bad idea. But it currently does not seem within a skill set that I have encountered a human that they have this skill to scale up your culture without some diminution from when you were small. Now, that doesn't mean that a big company can't have a fucking awesome culture, but it is very hard to scale up the trust and the sort of diehard nature of the ultimate core of your culture, because it's inevitable that you're going to get a lot of different personality types. Now, this is where, as you get into the realities of human psychology, unfortunately, I can't just say we're not blank slates. So I can say that. We're definitively not blank slates. So people are coming in with cognitive biases. They're coming in with a personality type that is it unmutable? Probably not, but there are going to be elements of it that really make them a certain kind of person. And so here is one thing that I have found. One, you're only as good as what you write down. So make sure your culture has a document, it's written down. Two, make sure that you hire people that have a certain personality type. That personality type should fit the job. Three, make sure that as somebody comes in, that you reconcile their personality with the type of culture that you have. Like there are certain traits that are not going to work very well at Impact Theory because, as you can imagine, being a mindset company, even if I have somebody who is extraordinarily talented at their job, if they're too pessimistic, they're always coming at things from a negative side, they see the ways that things can't be done, and they have a very hard time getting the ways that things can be done, that can be very problematic for the culture. Now, the hard balance that you have to walk is you don't want groupthink. You don't want everybody to be delusional people, pie in the sky, flying out. Like if we only hired people that were like me, we would rapidly run into trouble. But there are people like my wife, who's the perfect balance to me. She totally buys into the psychological principles of a growth mindset. She is willing to start with a path to yes, all of that, even though naturally she gravitates towards logistics and how things are going to be problematic. So you have to be very careful when you hire to make sure that you're finding somebody like that who can, and I'm assuming that your culture has elements of a growth mindset baked into it, that they are both heterogeneous in the way that they think, so they don't think like you, but at the same time, there are certain base principles that they adopt. So Ray Dalio said principles as a culture of being candidly honest, questioning everything. He said that can be used to change anything in the company except the fact that there are principles and that we're going to have this candid and open culture. Because he said that one thing people tried to do was leverage that culture against itself to change the culture. So there's going to need to be this immutability and flexibility at the same time to your culture. So there has to be something core that can never be changed, but it also has to be this living, breathing thing that changes as you bring people on. Okay. In the beginning, you have to live by example in the most hardcore way conceivable, because in the beginning, what you're doing is training your generals. It's going to be those generals that are going to then train the next batch of people. And then they have to train their generals who are going to train the next batch of people, so that as you go wider and wider, people don't need to know you personally, but they need to know somebody who was trained by you or somebody who was trained by somebody who was trained by you, right? So that's, as far as I can tell, that is the only way to scale culture, because you personally are not going to be scalable. And even doing what I'm doing now does not work to fucking scale culture. So even though my own employees could go and just watch how many hundreds of hours of content do we have at this point? They could dip into virtually any piece of it and learn exactly how I think. And even they aren't able to perfectly embody it unless we meet routinely and talk about it. We talk about when somebody deviates from it. We write it down. What you celebrate is going to matter. So when people do things that are particularly in line with that culture, you want to celebrate that. So ultimately, think of it as turning your culture into a manual, turning the mindset into a manual, handing that manual out, training people on that manual, onboarding people through that manual, hiring based on what that manual has, and then articulating it, re-articulating it, retrain it, and call people out when they don't do it, and celebrate people when they do it. And that is about the only way to scale culture.
Thanks very much, Tom. I really appreciate the real deep dive. I'm wondering as well, like if you take Quest, for example, and I've heard you speak many times about how yourself and Lisa and the team at Impact Theory keep each other accountable and hold each other to account if you step outside your belief system, let's say. Did you have any, practical, I suppose, communication in Quest as to the rules of the game, as to letting people know they will be held to account, or other similar sort of systems in place as to do a temperature check, let's say, on culture, or to like establish that people are living by the rules or the values that you
So Quest was harder. Quest is where I learned a lot of the lessons by doing a lot of things wrong that I'm now deploying at Impact Theory. So Quest was where I learned that you're only as good as what you write down, because we weren't writing everything down. We thought, we started so small. It was all about maintaining that sort of startup vibe as we got bigger. But the reality is you can't, and you need a level of bureaucracy so that people can get the communication that they need. And so I was great when people were around me. They could see my work ethic. I could talk to them one-on-one. I could explain how their thinking wasn't working for them, whatever, how it wasn't working for the company. And then as I got bigger and it wasn't written down, people weren't onboarded through it. There wasn't sort of a manual or a document that people could imbibe. I wasn't hiring people based on personality type. So I didn't even consider personality type when hiring for a given role, but different roles require different personalities. And so because of all that, it became like this mishmash, hodgepodge, and some people really embodied the culture and were living it, and then other people weren't. But we weren't doing anything formally to celebrate that or call it out if people weren't living according to it. So now it's what we do here is, there's one thing we can't talk about it yet, can we? So there's one thing we can't talk about yet because we've partnered with a company that's created a tool. This tool is fucking extraordinary for real-time feedback, but we do real-time feedback. You're going to get feedback multiple times a day from people all across the company, based on different areas of your performance, your mindset, all kinds of stuff. It is absolutely extraordinary for holding people accountable to the most nuanced elements of the mindset. Also keeps it as a topic of conversation. And when you're giving that feedback, you're actually giving them a rating, which then gives them you can see sort of a sports card breakdown of their stats, if you will. Which is really amazing. But those stats can change at any time. So maybe one period of your life you're being particularly fixed mindseted, but then you really get the hang of it and you're more growth mindseted. But having a way to track it, having a document that lays out what it is, training, accountability, celebration, like that's what you have to do. But I will say that the part that I can't talk about, maybe one of the most important parts if you want to scale, you've got to have measurable proof of where somebody's at. Otherwise, people have their own interpretations and they get blind, and we all have our deficits at being able to accurately assess ourselves. And without that tool, it's going to be tough.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, and keep up all the good work. I'm looking forward to the event this week as well. So thank you.
Dude, super excited that you're coming for that, man. You say you're flying 13 and a half hours?
13 and a half hour flights.
That is insane, man. Well,
It's
I'm
well
super
worth it.
excited to
Well
see you.
worth it.
Very kind. All right. Next up.
So here's the next question.
Yeah.
Repeat this after you.
Word.
What are the ways you question your belief when you're not even fully aware of the limitations you hold?
What are the ways I question my beliefs even when I'm not fully aware of the limitations I hold? Yeah. How do I consciously go through and try to ferret out those limiting beliefs?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Kind of like
This is the second time this question's been asked. This is really interesting. Okay, so let me, is the person in the feed, there's a huge delay, right? So if I ask them for,
I have it right here.
I need some clarifying. What is their actual problem? Are they having trouble getting out of bed? Are they fighting with their significant other all the time? Do they hate themselves? Are they contemplating suicide? Like how is this manifesting in real life?
I'll get that to you.
Because I don't think either I don't understand what's driving the question, or my answers are shit, because this is literally the same question from the top of the office hours.
Let's go to Zoom.
So we'll get that answer when we...
All right, cool. More answers on that in the near future. All right, well, I'm going to start vamping. Oh, wait, we're good?
Yeah.
All right, fire away. What you got for me?
Yeah, you ready? Thanks for everything, guys. This is awesome. My question is mindset development versus the technical skills that you need to execute on your ultimate vision. And how do you prioritize them? And is decision a piece that helps you decide what to do and when? And then to continue on this is, what about technique? Like, as you and Rich Roll so powerfully discussed, does that trump all else once you wholeheartedly believe that what you want to do is possible? And from that place, you just need to go out and execute?
Okay, so the punchline to life is yes, you just need to go out and execute. But I want to get to a far less philosophical part of your question that's just rooted in some nitty gritty shit that I wish weren't true, but it is. One of the skill sets that is very hard to develop, but is absolutely critical, is the ability to know what order to do things in, and one's ability to assess that order of priority, what I call my important things list. That is a art form, maybe more than just a pure skill set, or maybe that's me wanting it to be cooler than it is. But here's how I got there. A lot of fucking experience. And so I find that the only thing that stops people from becoming just like ridiculously genius level performers with a lot of experience is when their ego is in the way and they're deflecting all of their fuck ups and trying to see it as, no, I didn't do anything wrong there. That was something else. If you're like, oh, wow, that failed, and oh man, that really sucks, and I dropped the ball there, and this, that, or the other. And you're like, but I don't say that so I feel badly about it. I say that so I can accurately assess what went wrong. And one of the things that you're going to see is you'll find that you may have a particular, you get excited over dumb shit, maybe is a great way to say it. That this is an excerpt from my own life here, boys and girls. So there's no question that there are certain things that I want to do and be excited about. And I've learned over time, because I get excited about them and I end up wasting or losing money. So I'll give you an example. Back at Quest, we launched an apparel company called Quest Apparel. None of you have heard of it because it failed and it cost me a lot of money. And in that debacle, I realized a lot of things about branding that I didn't understand that certainly play out now intelligently in my life. I learned a lot about how I like to prioritize certain things that get me excited. And some of the marketing materials around the clothing I found so much fun. I just could not stop myself from spending time on it and moving forward. And I had lost countless hours designing t-shirts and all that. So now as we move over into impact theory, we're only just now really starting to put energy into merchandise, because I know myself well enough that in the beginning, I wanted to put a lot of time and energy there, and I just couldn't allow myself to, because I had learned through experience, through failure, that the kind of time and energy that I wanted to put into it to make it really cool, to make it expensive and high end and all that, it just didn't work. And so because I was willing to fully embrace that that was a mistake, that I had not understood that I was excited about something and I was missing the fact that it was a total misread of the business situation. And so in that, I'm refining my technique for getting better at knowing what has to be in what order. Now, all of that, the punchline of that is, this is one of those things that you have to spend time getting good at. So you want to be reading books like Essentialism. You want to be reading books like Measure What Matters. You want to really understand business fundamentals so that you get better at prioritizing things. You want to understand yourself by auditing your behavior. What do I get irrationally excited about? Can I leverage that at times? When do I ignore that? And getting really good at even using consiglieres that can tell you, no, you're just getting excited about this. That you're misreading. There's not a business opportunity. And then understanding, like, how long does something have to continue to present itself as something that excites you before you allow yourself to move forward with it? And can you step out of the excitement stream for a minute and into the data stream and say, is there really any data for me to go off of? And then build a team around you that are strong where you're weak, so that you have that sounding board of people that can tell you you're not thinking about this in the right way. So in some ways, you're going to outsource some of that intelligence. And then in other ways, you're going to develop that intelligence over time. And then in the third and final analysis of this, you're going to never be afraid to make a mistake. So you're going to put something on your fucking important things list, and you're just going to do it. And you're going to go headlong into it, and you're going to learn and see what happens. And I find that people are particularly bad at all three of those things. I've talked about why they're bad at the other two, but the third one I want to really put a point on and say it is far better to embarrass yourself routinely by taking action and making a mistake than it is to simply stand still. Now, there might be some point later down the road where you're just digging yourself into such a deep hole that maybe you are just better calling it a day and not digging anymore. But I would say that day is so far away that act, assess, react. Like that's the process. You want to take an action, be bold, try something, see what happens, assess it, devoid of ego, inviting other voices into the analysis, and then change your approach the next time based on the things you've learned. Is that all?
That's fucking
Makes
cool.
sense. Any follow-ups, anything
Can
in
I
there?
follow up or what's that?
Is there any follow-up to that, or did that all make sense?
Yeah, man, that's really fucking cool. I like the idea of the important things list, and I'm curious, like you'd said in the last call, step 3 was to journal on what we want each day, and that's something that I've been doing, kind of the stream of consciousness, and it's fucking awesome and powerful. I'm wondering how you do that. Is your journaling more to the grand vision, like the ultimate vision, or is it today I really want to go run an extra mile, I want to get a little bit stronger, or is it fucking shit, we're gonna take on Disney at some point? So like, is everyday journaling about that big grand vision, or is it smaller than that?
So it is, some days it's the gigantic vision and some days it's something totally minute. And so what you need to do is figure out, like, where are you right at that moment? Is there something that is just, it won't leave your mind? You can't solve that problem. Are you like, I'll do an example day. Let's say I'm sitting in front of my important things list and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh man, I don't know which of these things I should be attacking first. Then I would start journaling about that. Now, even just telling you this example, the first thing that came to my mind was, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish, which is almost always the right place to start. So I'm going to start with, okay, and by the way, this is actually what I do. I'm going to write the words, what am I trying to accomplish? Question mark. And if I put a period instead of a question mark, I delete it, I go back, I fix it, I make it a question mark. There is something about the process of having to actually write down every word that's in my head, and even fixing spelling mistakes and things. I'm not going to go back and fucking make the sentence cool or write it well, but it's like, if I see a spelling mistake, I'm going to fix the spelling mistake and I'm going to move forward. And slowing my pace down enough like that, there's something about that brings my brain to the level I need to be at to process what I'm actually going through. Whereas if I'm only thinking in the abstract, I'm not writing anything down, I'm just meditating on something, I find that my mind goes more towards imagery and it may not be as solution oriented. I may not come to understand myself. I may get flashes of brilliant insight, which is actually interesting. I've never really thought about the dichotomy here before. I will get flashes of brilliant insight that come almost entirely in imagery form when I'm meditating on a problem. When I'm journaling, I actually come to understand myself. I come to understand what's driving my behavior. I come to understand the steps and the processes that I need to get to. I come to understand why I may want one thing to be true when I have this instinct that something else is true. Like, let's say that I want to do another comic book over the live event series, whatever. And I'm stuck and I'm like, fuck, which one of these do I do? Well, I need to ask myself, what am I really trying to accomplish? Oh, okay, I really want to impact the most people, or no, I really want to tell stories. Like, whatever, no judgment. What am I really trying to do with this? And then I'll write all that out and I'll follow that. I'll chase that down rabbit holes, no judgment, just going into it. And I'll go where that leads until the thing that's really been bothering me has a resolution. Now, how do you know when it has a resolution? You will fucking feel it. And by the way, when I feel it, I wish I had a quick access to my journal here. But when I feel something, I will actually write, ooh, that feels good. I actually fucking write that. And that's when I know I'm onto something. And then if I really like hit on a sentence and it's like, yeah, fuck, I don't want to forget that, I'll highlight that. And going through that process without judgment, starting with what I'm trying to accomplish, or even just writing like the descriptor of my feelings, the thing that's pushing me to write. Why do I feel shitty about this? Why do I think that went bad? Asking myself that leading question and going into the answers and just typing stream of consciousness without judgment. That's the key. We lost him, so I'm guessing I won't get a follow-up to that, but hopefully that makes sense. Journaling is super fucking powerful. I think people should be doing it more.
Yeah, the quick follow-up to the questions before that.
Yes.
Her name's actually April, and it's all completely my fault. She said you actually did answer the question. Like, her question was more about how to untangle childhood trauma.
Ooh, yeah.
She said you answered the question. So,
I didn't, Will, because I didn't address childhood trauma. Childhood trauma is a whole thing unto itself. And I want to say this, however many people are in the feed right now, it's going to be close. Nothing is ever 100%, but it's going to be close to 100% of people that have a significant childhood trauma. it is really crazy how many people deal with that. So one, I just want to say, if you feel like you are alone, I promise you, no matter what, you are not alone. And there is a massive amount of relief in that. Step number 2, if you want to undo childhood trauma, you absolutely must learn about the brain. It is a must. You're never going to make progress unless you understand how to get something in the mind to atrophy and how to build something new in its place. If you don't understand the mechanisms of that, you're never going to get past a childhood trauma. This goes for adult traumas as well, by the way. But I think maybe trauma more than anything is the part where you have to understand the brain the most. The next thing I'm going to say is read the book Feeling Good by David D. Burns. That book is extraordinarily powerful at giving you the tools, the daily tools that you're going to need through cognitive behavioral therapy to get you to assess the thinking patterns that you have that are actually inaccurate, the distortions. I think he calls them thinking distortions. So you need to identify that. And then the behavioral elements that you're going to modify long before they feel true, but by embodying them and getting them at a physical level, you're going to be able to disrupt some of these feelings and the negative thought patterns. And that, I think, is just extraordinarily powerful. And man, one thing I would love to get David D. Burns to do something with us, guys. I'm looking at my team here, because I think that his particular brand of cognitive behavioral therapy is extraordinarily powerful. So if you're dealing with anything like that, start with that book. I think it'd be very, very helpful. It's basically a $7 therapist that you can read over and over and over. And if you actually do the work, I think it will change you utterly and completely. So there it is. All right. I think we're out of time.
We are out of time.
All right. Do we have like one last parting shot question we want to hit people with?
Yeah, I have a question this question is from Shruti, and her question, it's a little similar. So what if you are so unsure about what your belief is, how do you start eliminating what isn't working and how to get those rootkit system completely pure?
Okay.
Similar.
So basically, yeah, we're circling around a theme today, which is very powerful. Thank you guys so much for pushing me on this issue. So this is, again, what do you do if you're, I think the nature of the question is this. So I'm not going to rephrase that question. I'm going to say what I think is driving all of this. People intellectually understand mindset. They intellectually understand the beliefs and why they're so powerful, but they don't feel them. And the second they're away from this class, the second they're away from the notes that they've taken, the second they're not repeating these things in their head, they slide back into old patterns. And I think that discrepancy between head and body, of knowing in the mind but not feeling in the body, is the root of why we're circling around this question. Here's the great news. This is simply a process. And you're going to have to go through the 3 types of learning to really bury this deep in your mind so that it gets into your autonomic nervous system and is happening automatically. You're going to figure out what are the beliefs that you're going to repeat. Then you're going to start repeating them. You're going to, take time to tell yourself rad and exciting shit. We just did an episode, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. We just did an episode, the hilarity of the fact that I'm forgetting her name when the very thing that she charged me with was not telling myself I have a bad memory is not lost on me, Will. But we just had, what? No. That's what we just aired. I don't know that we've aired this episode yet. But we just had a woman on whose name I'm forgetting. I have the best memory in the fucking world, and I'm going to remember this name, maybe not right this second, but soon and forever, and it will be mine. Okay, that's exactly what I do. I do it in my head. I talk like that to myself because that kind of stuff motivates me. So she said, because I kept saying, hey, she was a memory expert, and she was like, actually, that's not true. She wasn't a memory expert. She is an expert of embedding thoughts in your mind. And she was saying, your mind is always listening. Whatever you say to it, it's going to grab a hold of. And I said, hey, funny. What's that? Marissa Peer. Thank you. Marissa Peer said, Tom, you cannot allow yourself to say that you have a bad memory, that your brain is listening and it's going to really ingrain that. And so I thought, you know what? She's absolutely right. I know that she's right. And there is this limiting belief in my own mind, an edge case for me, where it's just always seemed like, I don't know that I would get big rewards for that. So this is going to be one of those things that I would have to work extraordinarily hard to get rid of in my life. And I'm doing well enough in my life. Do I really need to fuck with that? And so I thought, you know what? This is a perfect thing for me to try. And immediately I started telling myself, I'm not joking. My memory's been better since I started telling myself that my memory is good. It's so fucking freaky. So you just have to put the work in, but it isn't in my subconscious mind yet. I haven't done it enough. So you have to interrupt your thoughts. So when the negative thought happens and you get into a negative belief, a fixed mindset, you're feeling like something isn't possible, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not worthy, you have to interrupt it. So you have to feel it, recognize it, interrupt it, and you're going to interrupt it in a super simple way. When you go, man, my memory is shit, you're going to say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Human potential is nearly limitless. I know I can make my memory better. Maybe I'm never going to be the world's greatest memory person, but I can improve my memory dramatically. Okay, fantastic. Since I know that's true, now it's a question of, am I going to put in the work? Yes, I'm going to put in the work. This is important enough to me. Guys, I don't say words like that in my head. I say these fucking exact words. So this is exactly what I do. Negative thought, I repeat the belief in my head, the positive one, the one that I want, and then I hype myself up. I tell myself something exciting, that I can have an extraordinary memory, that I can remember things with ease, that I'm going to be laughing a year from now, 2 years from now with how good my memory is, that I'm going to be shocked at how much better I get. And then when I remember something that normally I might have forgot, then I'm like, oh my God, this is working. And I'm reinforcing it. The very fact that I'm saying this stuff to you right now is literally me practicing and reinforcing in my own mind that my memory is getting better. So I externalize a lot of this stuff and do it exactly like I do it in my mind, including the hype and the excitement and all of that. And I think sometimes people think that that's just my performance layer. And so they're waiting for like but no, really, how do you do it? Really, this is how I do it. So keep repeating this stuff. It will keep ingraining. Be relentless. Hold yourself accountable. Never, never let yourself say something negative in your head without interrupting it. And in fact, oftentimes if I'm really struggling with something, I'll repeat it 3 times in my head to really drive it home. So if I have one negative belief, I'm going to hit it with 3. Human potential is nearly limitless. Human potential is nearly limitless. Human potential is nearly limitless. I got this. I can do it. And so can you. All right. Oh, we have a giveaway. Just when I was about to say goodbye, we're going to be giving away a copy of David Goggins' seminal book, Can't Hurt Me, which is amazing, by the way. And is Cash Globe a person's name?
That's his name.
All right, here we go. We're giving away Can't Hurt Me to Cash Globe, Kabir Sharma from Progressive Lifestyle, April from Infused Dance Studio. Thank you guys so much for being engaged. I really hope, if you haven't already, you will dive into Can't Hurt Me. I think that book is absolutely extraordinary. And super bizarrely, was this Lisa's idea? She was literally listening to this morning on Audible. Shout out to Audible. Much love, you guys. There it is. It is very relevant. All right, everybody. These were office hours. I promise we will get better at the technical stuff, so don't judge us on that. But hopefully the office hours and the Q&A works well in this format, in breaking it up, giving you guys time to think about it. That's it. That's us signing out. Thank you guys so much for joining us for these office hours for September. Until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Peace.